Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvisheshishmiyavadi Pashacha Deshatarane Manchikalpataru Vishakrivisandhyavacha Patitam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavajnaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gauri Vishnama Manchitakramaka Krishna Bhakta Rupa Surupakam Bhakya Vakar Bhaktyam Namo Vibhakti Shaktikam He Krishna Karma Sindhina Bhanu Jagapati Gopesh Gopi Prakandara Namaste Jaya Jamsuratul Pangur Mama Mandir Mandir Gatimak Sarvasha Param Bho Jao Shri Radhanaramanam Nidipindan Yekalpatruma Dashimantu Nagarishanasto Shri Shivaji Lago Devo Krishna Vishevu Manaswarami Shriman Rasarasarami Manu Shiva Tattva Devi Swaraya Bhuti Gopinatha Shritana Tapta Kachana Gaurangi Radhe Vedavishwari Krishnapana Suti Devi Pranami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Gita Dita Bhakti Bhavina Chetasa Veda Shastra Purana Nityanani Sarvashaha. For those who study the Bhagavad-gītā as it is with great faith and devotion, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is revealed. So this evening, I thought that we would read from an amazing verse from the Bhagavad-gītā. The second chapter, text 29. So you said there was no board, but many Gitas. I see no board, and I also see no Gitas. I noticed. So when these Bhagavad-gītās are distributed, and you kindly turn in the second chapter, chapter 2, text number 29. As I said, it's an amazing verse. Now we will find out why. So the verse reads, Ascharyavat pashyati kaschit denam Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya Ascharyavat chainam anya shrinoti Shudvapenam vedana chaiva kaschit. So please repeat after me. Ascharyavat, as amazing. Pashyati, sees. Kaschit, someone. Enam, this soul. Ascharyavat, as amazing. Vadati, speaks of. Tata, thus. Eva, certainly. Cha, also. Anya, another. Ascharyavat, similarly amazing. Cha, also. Enam, this soul. Anya, another. Shrinoti, hears of. Shrutva, having heard. Api, even. Enam, this soul. Veda, knows. Na, never. Cha, and. Eva, certainly. Kaschit, someone. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Some look on this soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad 1:2-7. Shravanayapi bahuvir yona labhya shrinvanto api bahuvo yam navidyuhu ascharya bhakta kushalosya labdha ascharyosya gyata kushana nushishtaha. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matters for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without the self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps they have no idea that one must think of the soul and thus make a solution to the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the super soul, the atomic soul, their respective functions and relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or other one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad-gītā spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee as by no other way. Once more, the verse reads, Ascharyavat pashati kashchidenam ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanya ascharyavat chainam anya srinoti sudlapi enam veda natraiva kashchi. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about it, cannot understand it at all. So Srila Prabhupada writes here, the men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit. So, Vedic culture, the culture of ancient India, is so-called Vedic because the basis of that culture is spiritual knowledge. Veda means knowledge, but particularly it means Atma Jnana, knowledge of the self, the Atma, as opposed, as apart from the covering of the self. The self has both gross and subtle covering. Subtle covering is the mind, gross covering is the physical body. So, the Vedic culture rests on 4 pillars, just like a table or chair will have 4 legs to hold us up very nicely. So Vedic culture similarly rests on 4 legs: truthfulness, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness. These are 4 principles of life which are necessary to develop this Atma-jnana, this knowledge of the soul. Truthfulness, it means to understand things as they are and to describe things as they actually are. Now one receives proper understanding not by probing this world through the coverings of the soul, as I mentioned, gross and subtle. This is what is taken as the process of knowledge today. That human beings, so-called scientists, whoever they may be, they engage their gross physical senses in examining this world, and then with their the subtle coverings of the soul, the mind, they speculate. Now these gross senses are imperfect. And even if you try to extend and enhance these senses with different machines like telescope, microscope, and so on, it doesn't change the basic, the fundamental imperfection. And the mind is also highly imperfect. So if the mind takes that imperfect information and speculates on it, then it becomes simply more imperfect. So truthfulness means to discard this unreal, asat. Asat means unreal and asatya means untruthful. So this unreal, this false way of so-called knowledge. One must discard that. And here, this is the point that's being stressed here. Shrutva. Shrutva means to hear. Hear from the Veda and the Vedic authority, one who is called in Vedic language Apta. Apta we can just loosely translate it as adept. And Apta, otherwise Apta may be referred to by words like Rishi, sage, and so on, Sadhu. But Apta is a very nice word because it indicates that this person has realized what he is speaking. He's speaking Veda, not by rote, not by memory, but by realization. So he is able to apply, he is able to help us understand practically that knowledge by applying it to our present situation. This is what keeps Vedic knowledge alive. Just like Srila Prabhupada, the founder of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he came to New York City in 1965 bearing this age-old Vedic knowledge. Now one would think, especially if one knows what was going on in New York in 1965, one would think that there would not be much of an audience for age-old knowledge because people at that time, as they are now, but at that time there was a whole movement, of breaking down old systems of thought and trying out new things. It was the so-called hippie movement. So in those days people thought the process of knowledge was to take different pills to shock the mind, shock the brain, so that it sees different hallucinations, and that was taken as knowledge. But Srila Prabhupada, he applied the age-old Vedic knowledge to the modern situation, the modern times. He preached the ancient revelation in such a way that modern people could understand and appreciate. And this is the test of realization. This is the apta. The one who's speaking from the realized position, who's not just saying there is soul because he has read it, but who actually sees the soul. Sees the soul in all living beings, and when he speaks, he addresses the soul directly. His words cut right through the mind and the body and all of this speculation illusory attachments, cuts right through them. And therefore Bhakta is also called Sadhu, one who cuts through illusion and reveals the truth. So that is why Srila Prabhupada gathered hundreds and hundreds of followers from among these very up-to-date young people who discarded all the traditions of the past, but they were in search of knowledge. Real knowledge. And that they received from Srila Prabhupada. So anyway, this is the point of truthfulness. Truthfulness, austerity. Austerity must be there. Again, referring to these four legs. Austerity means sense control. Particularly with regards to what one eats. Diet, as it is said, you are what you eat. So if you eat nonsense, then you become nonsense. So similarly, sexual activities should be restricted. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, all of these should be brought under control. That is austerity. Cleanliness. And mercy. So anyway, I don't want to elaborate on these too much. But these are the principles, the basic principles of Vedic civilization, which help one come to the platform of understanding oneself as soul apart from the body. Now, the Western culture, European culture, is notably devoid of these four principles. In fact, the opposites are there. Instead of cleanliness, dirtiness. Instead of austerity, it's licentiousness. Instead of mercy, people in the West are very cruel and hard-hearted, basically because they exist on the flesh of cruelly slaughtered animals. Cleanliness, austerity, and yes, truthfulness, finally. Just turn on your television and you'll see truthfulness go down the drain as soon as the screen comes on. And that has been the unfortunate condition of our culture for a good many years. That doesn't mean that our culture has been absolutely devoid of spiritual knowledge. But it is certain that this culture has not been very sympathetic to spiritual knowledge. You see, the symbol of the Christian religion is the Guru, the Acharya, the spiritual master, hung on a cross by nails. Why was he put on the cross by nails? Because people didn't like what he was teaching. And what was he teaching? He was teaching about the soul and about God. But because people were not austere, not truthful, and not merciful, they were unclean. They didn't like this message, so they wanted to kill the Guru. And even before Jesus, there was another great personality in the Western world, whom Srila Prabhupada used to appreciate very much, Socrates, who was a philosopher, probably heard of, in ancient Greece. So Srila Prabhupada said Socrates is Mukta Purush, a liberated person. Srila Prabhupada once made the comment that in the whole history of Western civilization, there was only one philosopher, and that was Socrates. And everyone else was simply a mental speculation. Because Socrates, he was empowered. He was actually empowered by the supersoul. It appears that Socrates was supersoul realized from his own statements, because he said, he once made the comment that since his very early age, he heard a voice within himself which always directed him to do right and avoid the wrong. And Socrates said, the difference between myself and other men is that I always followed this voice. So, from within, Socrates was inspired to speak on the soul. As Srila Prabhupada writes here, it is very difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul, and was able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. This is just what Socrates used to do, describe the soul in its different aspects. And opponents would come forward and try to defeat him, but they could not, because he was so firmly situated in knowledge. But Socrates was preaching, again, in a culture that was very degraded. People did not like to hear what he was saying. So, a trial was held. He was accused of misleading the youth, and he was sentenced to death. Actually, they didn't really want to kill him. They gave him 1 month. They put him under house arrest for 1 month, but he had ample opportunity to escape. But he refused to escape. He said, no, my mission in life is to preach here in Athens, and I'm going to continue. And so fearlessly, even within the jail, he was preaching. So on the last day, his disciples, they begged him, please Socrates, there's still time. If we leave together, no one will stop you. We just go somewhere else. They only want you to leave Athens. They don't want you to stay here. And he said, no, why are you so worried? They cannot kill me, because I am eternal. And someone asked Socrates, how will we grave you? In other words, what will you do with you after you die? And he smiled and said, you can grave me if you catch me. Prabhupada always appreciated this remark very much. So at that time, death sentence was administered by a cup of poison, a cup of hemlock. So as this was being prepared, it was apparently a very involved process to prepare this hemlock. It seemed to take a long time. So his disciples made a last-ditch effort to try to convince Socrates to leave. So what they thought they would do, a couple of disciples, they thought that they would put forward some very difficult arguments to disprove the eternality of the soul. They were thinking that if we can dislodge Socrates from his conviction that the soul is eternal, then maybe he'll become a little afraid. And he won't want to drink the hemlock, and he'll take up our offer to escape. So their arguments are interesting. They're very clever. And I'm just mentioning all this because the subject of the verse is that understanding the soul is difficult for people who are not austere and have a poor fund of knowledge. They find the topic of the soul to be amazing, beyond their comprehension. So these arguments are amazing arguments in that sense. They're arguments put forward by persons who are amazed by the concept of the soul and cannot grasp it properly. Actually, you see, by reading this, there's this book called The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. You can see, just like Jesus Christ's disciples, they were not very advanced. They were very easily persuaded by opposing arguments. So there were two disciples who came forward. And the first was named Simmias. And he presented the concept of the soul that was taught by an ancient system of numerology called the Pythagorean system. Pythagoras is a famous ancient mathematician, and his theories are still with us in algebra. We still learn his theories in school today. So he's considered a great wise man of the West. Now, apparently, either from him or from his followers, there came out a rather peculiar idea of the soul. The soul, they explain, the Pythagorean school, explained in terms of harmony, which is a concept which I think today in the New Age would be welcomed with open arms. People like this concept of harmony. So the Pythagoreans said this body is a composite of opposites. It's a collection of opposing principles. So these are all, of course, material things, gross physical things in opposition. But there's something fine, something subtle, which pervades the whole body. That is the principle of harmony, which balances all these opposites. And thus, we are able to live very nicely in this body because of the existence of the soul. But the soul pervading the body is dependent upon the body. Now, before we go any further, I just want to read a verse from Bhagavad-gītā in which the same point of the soul pervading the body is made, but the conclusion is very opposite to that of the Pythagoreans. Krishna says in text 17 of this same chapter, that which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Now the Pythagoreans, their line of logic is that because the soul pervades the body, the soul must be destructible. And they gave the example of a musical instrument. When it is tuned up, like a violin or guitar or whatever you want to say, a stringed instrument, when it is tuned up and in harmony, so that tuning that is pervading, that is something subtle that pervades the whole instrument. It is not something gross, not something physical, that harmony, but nonetheless, it depends completely upon the instrument. If you smash an instrument, there's no more harmony. The harmony is also destroyed. So this is the Pythagorean logic, that yes, the soul pervades the body, and therefore, because the body is destructible, the soul must also be destructible. So when he spoke out this argument, then there were murmurings among the disciples, and they looked at, oh boy, this was a real good one. I really have some doubts now. Has Socrates really been teaching us the truth all these years? I mean, this is such a heavy argument. So, Socrates, he was enjoying this. He was smiling. And then Socrates, he asked Simmias, he asked Simmias, that if you say that the soul is simply the principle of harmony within the body, then how do you explain the soul's resistance of the bodily urges, which everyone has experienced, even those who are not on the spiritual path? Anyone who has to keep a schedule in life, who has to go to work, who has to sit in an office 8 hours a day, he is obliged by his schedule to control the urges of the body by higher consciousness. In the office, for instance, when a person may come late to the office in the morning, he's missed his breakfast. So all throughout the morning he's very hungry. He's just waiting, looking at the clock. When will it be 1 o'clock so I can take my lunch? He's very hungry. But he cannot stop to eat because his schedule demands. You must sit here at your desk. You must do this work. If the boss sees you going out and getting something to eat, you'll be in trouble. So he's forced to control his senses. Or another man sitting at the desk. He may be looking over at some beautiful young secretary, and he's thinking all sorts of lusty thoughts about her. Sorts of pornographic visions in his mind. But he has to control these thoughts. You see? What would happen if he would start to act out his fantasies right there in the office, the police would be called, he would be dragged away. So he knows better. He controls himself. And another very everyday example is that we may be sick, we may have some serious disease, we go to the doctor, and he prescribes medicine, which is very bitter. We don't like it, our tongue recoils as soon as one drop of this medicine comes on it. But we know, the doctor said, you must take this medicine 3 times a day. If you don't, your health will wither away, you'll die. So we force ourselves to take this medicine. The body doesn't like it. But by higher intelligence, higher consciousness, we do it anyway. So even ordinary life is full of so many instances of how the soul, higher consciousness, is controlling the urges of the body. Not simply being one with the urges of the body, being the harmonious principle which keeps everything going very nicely. But actually the soul is at war with its body. That is a fact. And it becomes very clear to one who takes up spiritual life, the one who wants to actually realize himself as soul. Then he's obliged to completely subdue the passions of the body. Vacho, Veda, Monosakro, these are listed. The urges of the tongue to speak anything and everything, and also the other urge of the tongue is to taste anything and everything. This must be subdued. This must be brought under complete control. The urge of the mind to think any nonsense, no. The mind must be controlled. That is yoga. The anger also must be controlled. The tongue, the belly, the genital, they must be controlled. So, this requires spiritual strength. So, Simmias, he had to agree with Socrates that yes, this argument of harmony does not explain the soul's struggle, and in spiritual life, not only struggle, but the soul's conquest of the bodily urges. The soul must be superior to his body, not simply principle harmony within the body. So then, everyone was satisfied until they heard the next argument, which was actually much more formal, from Sebes. So Sebes, now his argument, we can also refer to another verse in this Bhagavad-gītā. As a person, this is from text 22, as a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Now Sebes, he actually gave this identical example. He compared the passage of bodies to be the changing of clothes. And what Sebes was asking is that we accept the full consequences of this argument. The full consequences of this argument is that if we take this example of a body, a living body, changing clothes. So we are wearing a certain shirt, a certain pair of pants. We wear them until they get old, frayed, holes in them. We can't use them anymore. We cast them off and we get on new clothes. And this way, through the years, we change many sets of clothes. So like this, the soul is moving from childhood to youth, to maturity, to old age, changing bodies in this life. But at one point, this change stops. The bodies don't change anymore. One of these bodies, it could be any one of them. Not only just the old body, it could be also the child body. But one of them, in this series of body, it dies and that's it. No more change of body. So Sebes, he proposed that what is happening is that the soul is dying. Because the example says, body is changing clothes. So the body changes clothes, set of clothes after set of clothes. Until when? Until the body dies. And then there's no more change of clothes. So similarly, we see the soul is changing bodies, but at one point the change stops. So he reasoned that means the soul must die, just like the body dies. He was arguing that we must accept the full consequences if we use this example. And this one really got everyone talking. Whoa. Now he's really done it. Now I've really lost my faith. How can we accept the existence of an eternal soul after hearing this? This was such a powerful argument. And when I was just in Helsinki, I was asking the devotees, please defeat this argument. There wasn't one in the room who could do it. But Socrates' way of replying to this is very clever, just really worth noting. He asked Sebes whether the body is dead or alive. In other words, he asked, you say that the soul is giving the body life, so you admit the body is dead, even when the body is moving in life. And Sebes said, yes, that's a fact. And you say that the soul is alive. He said, yes. And then Socrates said, so this means that the soul and body are opposites. Just like snow and fire. And Sebes said, yes. And they're radical opposites. For instance, when you bring snow and fire together, they recede from one another. In other words, you don't find the fire growing cool. You don't see the snow becoming hot. They simply cannot coexist. One must absolutely predominate over the other. And he says, yes, that's true. So, then Socrates concluded that, so you've admitted that the body is dead. Yes. And you've admitted that life is brought, or life manifests through the body from the presence of the soul. Yes. And when the soul leaves the body, then what happens to the body? It deteriorates, completely falls apart. It is simply perishable matter, isn't it? Yes. And you've admitted that the soul and the body are completely opposite. Yes, that's true. So then, if they're opposite, then the soul must be eternal. Because matter is temporary and perishable, and the body is dead matter. The body is not life. And you have said that the soul is life. So therefore the soul must also, if it is opposite in every way, as you agree, the soul must be eternal. And simply when the soul is in the body, it is causing the body to move. And when it leaves, the body completely disappears. And he said it's nothing more to say. So this is the meaning here, that one who has realized the soul, he is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But this is difficult to understand for one who is not cultivating truthfulness, cleanliness, austerity, and mercy. So therefore, to receive this knowledge that self-realized persons come, even in our Western culture, to deliver to us, we have to walk in their footsteps. Mahajno yene katasa panta. They are acharya. Acharya means they teach by their example. Not only are they speaking theoretical knowledge of the soul, but they're showing us how to live according to these principles of truthfulness, cleanliness, austerity, and mercy. And by following this way of life, then one can gradually develop a qualification for understanding the soul. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes on in this purport to say, some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association. So they've begun to follow this path of spiritual life. But sometimes, owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. So, yes, this is what Srila Prabhupada used to call the last snare of Maya, the last snare of illusion. That even when one begins to properly develop knowledge of the soul, he can become amazed and bewildered about the super soul, the supreme soul, Krishna, and the relationship between the supreme soul and the individual soul. And so from this amazement, from this bewilderment, there are many wrong theories that appear. For instance, the Mayavadi theory of absolute oneness. That when you realize the soul, then you realize yourself as being God also. The soul itself is God. Because they find the existence of the soul itself to be so amazing. They're so amazed by that, their beginning understanding of the soul, that there's just no more room left in the mind to comprehend anything more. So this is also due to a poor fund of knowledge. So therefore the conclusion is that it requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. Krishna can, however, be known by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee, and by no other way. So the pure devotee of Krishna, over and above even great philosophers who have realized the soul, the pure devotee is the most rare teacher to be found, because he can clarify for our understanding not only the existence of the soul, but the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna. Now, understanding Krishna means to understand spiritual form. For the most part, philosophers or philosophy that explains the soul, it negates form. Form means this body. And of course the world that is perceived by the senses of this body. The world of material form. In order to come to this beginning understanding of the soul, philosophy tends to negate spiritual form. Philosophy tells us it is all unreal. It's all illusion. So when that's negated, then what is left? Only the eternal soul. But the conclusion of this, because form has been negated, is that this soul is understood to be formless. And the spiritual existence is understood to be formless. And this is the great hurdle, you see, that can only be crossed by hearing from the pure devotee of Krishna, because he ushers us in to the realm of spiritual form. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He's eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. And all of this manifests in a divine mother pointing to a tree. What is that? The mother will say, that is a tree. Now the child, although the child apparently has no experience, the child is considered to be very simple-minded. The child is immediately able to grasp this concept, that this form is a tree. Now this may sound to you to be, well, what's so special about that? But actually it is very special. Because no two trees are the same. You see, if it was up to a computer, computers, they're also programmed to map out forms. They do it, of course, by a different system, digitally, by numbers. But a computer has a great deal of trouble, you see, with this problem of classes of forms. A computer can be taught that this is a tree, this one tree, this apple tree. And the computer will very happily map it out and get some, numerical value for this tree. And then you point the computer scanner at the next tree, and immediately the computer is bewildered. What's that? That's also a tree. But it doesn't add up to the same numbers here. And then there's a whole thing of teaching computers how to recognize. It's one of the great problems in computer science. Because why? Because it's very simple. Computers are not conscious. Whereas a little child, whom we think is very foolish because it just goes goo-goo and gaga, can immediately recognize what is form. This is a tree, and that's also a tree. But the child doesn't have to ask, after learning about the first tree, it doesn't have to ask again, what's that? Well, that's also a tree. What's that? That's another tree. The child doesn't know. We don't spend the rest of our lives asking every next tree we see, what is that? We immediately, there's something innate that grasps. This is a tree. And we can communicate this to another conscious entity. And we do. Over the telephone, we can describe in just a few words what we're seeing, and that person picks it up. He envisions the same thing in his mind. Without any effort. Those who know about computers, they know that this is really, really difficult, actually. There are enormous mathematical problems in trying to reproduce this everyday function of consciousness mechanically. Enormous problems. But in conscious entities, it's effortless. Now, why? Why is it the special province of consciousness to instantly recognize and communicate form? The answer is that form originates in consciousness, or the original consciousness is form, or however you want to say it. Formulate these different slogans. Ultimately, it comes to Krishna. Krishna, the original conscious being, is the original form, and for his own enjoyment, he displays the transcendental realm, the spiritual realm of original form, where he sports with his devotees, who all manifest their own wonderful transcendental forms. There is a beautiful work by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which describes the spiritual realm of Krishna. It's called the Brajariti Chintamani. And in this work, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the original person, Krishna, the all-attractive form, we are attracted to a form. We find among the forms that we perceive, there are some forms which are more attractive, some which are less attractive. So there's a hierarchy of attractive form. And that form which is all attractive, from which all other forms come, that is Krishna. So Krishna, the original person, Navayogana, the eternal youthful, beautiful young boy, he stands beneath an original tree, called the Vriksha tree in the spiritual world. This is a very interesting point because this tree, this original tree, it appears in many references in the Vedic scriptures. In the Vedas, in the Rig Veda and so on, there are many references to this Vriksha, this tree of Narayan. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says there is an original Kalpa tree, spiritual tree. And within the branches of this tree, the leaves and branches of the tree, are the origin of all the universes, all the Brahmanas and Shivas. Everything emanates from this original tree. So then, this tree grows within the courtyard of an original palace, a jeweled palace. And within this palace, there are 8 other courtyards. And within each one of these courtyards, there's another tree, which is an emanation from the first tree. And also within that each one of these same 8 courtyards, there are smaller palaces. So that original palace is the palace of Srimati Radharani, the original beautiful young girl who was Krishna's eternal consort. And then within the 8 palaces in the courtyards of that palace are Srimati Radharani's 8 principal gopi expansions. And then arrayed around this original palace, there are 8 kunjas. That means 8 groves, forest groves. And within each one of these forest groves, 8 forest groves, there are 9 palaces, as there is in the original. 1 large palace and 8 inside. And then around each one of those 8 groves, there are 8 more groves. And within each one of these 8 groves, there are also 9 palaces. So in this way, the forest of Vrindavan, Krishna's abode of transcendental pleasure pastimes, expands unlimited like this. And this forest is full of the most wonderful varieties. The ground of this forest, the earth, so to speak, of this forest, in some places it is composed of crushed gems. In other places it is composed of incense dust. In other regions of the forest it is composed of thick mango syrup. In other places it is composed of camphor. In other places it is powdered gold. And the trees which grow from this forest are jewel trees, chintamani trees. Everything in the spiritual world is formed out of chintamani. This means spiritual gem. Gem which is fully conscious, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. So there are clear crystal trees in the forest of Vrindavan. Growing up around these clear crystal trees are golden vines. And there are trees of emeralds and red ruby vines wrap around them, or golden vines also. There are also sapphire trees, blue sapphire trees, and trees of gold, and so many other precious substances. And these trees bear jeweled fruits, which drop to the ground, and jeweled flowers, and jeweled birds live in these trees. And so Krishna wanders with his devotees through this transcendental forest of Vrindavan, this limitless, expanding forest, and they enjoy different pastimes. For instance, there is one corner of the forest, one region, which is called Nila Nikunja, which is a sapphire forest. Everything there is formed of the blue sapphire. So Krishna likes to go there with Srimati Radharani. She is gold. Golden. And Krishna is blue. He's blue just like the sapphire. So he likes to enter that forest. He likes to sit by the path with Srimati Radharani. Because there, in this forest, he doesn't have to hide from Radharani's relatives, who sometimes come into the forest looking if Radha is meeting with Krishna secretly. Srimati Radharani's mother-in-law, Jatila, can walk down the path, and she will see Radharani sitting there under a tree, smiling. And Jatila will talk to Radha. So, my dear daughter-in-law, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling very wonderful to be here in the Nila Nikunja today. Oh yes, you're looking very beautiful sitting there against this brilliant blue background. Yes, it's so nice, you're so cooling. Very good. So we hope to see you soon at home. Please don't tarry too long in this forest. No, everything's all right. I'm very safe. And Jatila walks on. So Krishna is right next to Radharani, but he cannot be seen because he is blue like the sapphire. So Jatila fails to see him. So he likes to loiter in that forest. And so there are many, many other wonderful regions of the Vrindavan forest. So this is the origination of form. From out of the realm of Brahma, the realm of supreme consciousness. And we, spirit souls, we all originate in that realm. We belong to that realm. We are eternal sparks of consciousness. And here we are in this shadow world, looking for forms to enjoy. First of all, we're trying to enjoy this body. We've accepted this form. And we're trying to enjoy the other forms around us that we perceive. But all these forms are asat, achit, nirananda. They're temporary, eternal, full of ignorance. So there's no possibility of us enjoying these forms. So therefore, to complete spiritual realization means not only to come to this point of philosophy, to understand the soul as being separate from the body, being eternally the body temporary, but also to come to this most rare knowledge of understanding of spiritual form, that the soul has emanated from the original form, Sri Krishna himself. And therefore our original relationship is with him. We are very desirous of assuming a form and enjoying ourselves. So we must learn how to do this in the realm of spirit, not here in this realm of matter. So this is revealed, this great science of Krishna consciousness is revealed by the pure devotee of Krishna. This is far, far beyond even the realm of philosophy. This is the realm of pure bhakti, pure transcendental devotion, atma bhakti. There's atma jnana, the knowledge of the soul. But beyond that is atma bhakti, the pure devotion of the soul to Krishna, whereby the soul regains its original transcendental form, relationship with Sri Krishna. So I will stop here. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions?
One of the purposes of this second chapter of Bhagavad-gītā, Prabhupada writes that the soul is so minute that it cannot be seen by any material means. Does that mean that if the soul would be bigger, it could be seen by material means?
The soul is called in Bhagavad-gītā aprameya, immeasurable. As Prabhupada mentions here, the soul occupies and gives life to even great bodies like elephant or whale or banyan tree or whatever it may be, as well as the very insignificant microbes. So actually the soul is aprameya, it is immeasurable. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur once gave a very interesting definition of the word maya. Maya means illusion. So he said maya means that which is measurable. Anything that can be measured by length, breadth, or weight, or height, whatever, it must be maya. So the soul is spirit, the soul is immeasurable. But the soul is said to be smaller than the smallest. The soul is anu, very, very tiny, in relationship to Krishna. Krishna is the super soul, Vibhu, the greatest. So, there's so many examples given, like the super soul as the fire, the individual soul as the spark, the super soul of God as the sun, the individual soul as the tiny photon, tiny particle of sunlight. So in this way we understand the soul as smaller than the smallest in relationship with Krishna. But from the point of view of material measurement, the soul in the second chapter is called aprameya. It is immeasurable. You cannot measure the soul. And that's why that example is given. This example of 1/10,000 the tip of the hair. Pluck a hair, take the point, the tip of the hair, divide it into 100 parts, and then take one of those 100 parts and divide that into 100 parts, and then you'll get the size of the soul. Now no one can do that.